So, I am a humongous Monster Hunter fan. I've been playing it for over 10 years now, missing only Monster Hunter 4 in all that time. So naturally, I am immensely excited for Monster Hunter Wilds, even before the recent trailers. Or I would be, if not for the repeated disappointments I've had with games over the past few years. Although of course Rise Sunbreak is the most relevant one here. My concerns are mainly around three basic points. First of all, we've got the Seikret, our new, weirdly named replacement for the Palamutes. Now, I had an issue with Palamutes in Rise. Having a mount is really cool, and sort of just makes sense for Monster Hunter, but it was far better done in World than in Rise. In World, there is one speed for your mount, and that speed is the normal speed of your Palamute in Rise. But then, in Rise, you get sprinting, which is twice as fast. This meant that all of Rise's maps had to be inflated to maintain the sense of scale that would have been lost from the Palamute. After all, space doesn't really mean anything. It's the time that you need to spend traversing it that means something. As a result, the maps in Rise at times felt really empty and bloated, despite their attempts to fill it in with all the stuff you can explore and collect. The parts where you can explore and collect were fine, it's just the parts that you actually see while on hunts that felt oversized. There's also the small issue of the Palamute being able to keep up with running monsters, which basically eliminates limping from the game, other than as a formality to be performed before the monster starts sprinting off again. Because otherwise, they'd never get away, and so all of this has you relying on HUD to know when the monster is near death, instead of visual cues. The other issue with the Seikret is this pickup thing we saw in the first trailer. This has a risk of becoming Wirefall 2.0, and my god, I do not want that. Wirefall was, among other things, disastrous for the difficulty of Rise, and that's part of what disappointed me about it. They tried to balance it by making it instantly remove your invincibility frames, but it took barely any thought to work around. And so in the end, it functioned as just a huge mobility upgrade to catapult you out of danger whenever you made a mistake. Now, things are definitely not all doom and gloom here. Looking at the trailer, you've apparently got several balances to this mechanic. I mean, first of all, you can't catapult to safety whenever you want, because the Seikret actually has to reach you to pick you up. And when it picks you up, it takes a moment to do so instead of instantly flinging you out of danger. Just these two factors, if combined with the loss of invincibility frames, might make it palatable to me. But the other piece of good news you can glean is that the hunter seems to whistle for help just before getting hit. So hopefully, fingers crossed, this is something you have to preempt instead of calling upon at any time. I know having said all this makes it sound less like a concern, but even with all these apparent factors, I'm still wary and unsure if it'll all be enough to keep the game challenging. Not to mention the final point on this, which is the footage of the Seikret literally dodging attacks, and Capcom reportedly stating that this dodging is at least sometimes automatic. Next is the story focus that Capcom has made clear is coming, with this game apparently being the most cinematic and story-focused Monster Hunter to date. I am all for this in theory, but it still poses issues. Starting with the smallest, I am not keen on our character talking. It doesn't help that the male hunter is Batar Jr.
Now to lead it away from the pack, we'll make for the desert. Right.
But that's not the main reason. I really liked the silent protagonist I could project onto, and so if my hunter's chatting, then I'm not going to be able to do that. All I can hope for is that the hunter has minimal voice lines in cutscenes, and that I can turn off any that occur during battle, like I could in Rise. The other issue I immediately thought of while watching the second trailer was how these seamless cutscene to gameplay sequences are going to affect multiplayer. I play Monster Hunter with a specific group of friends every time, and having to watch cutscenes, quit the mission, and then restart in multiplayer was a real inconvenience and really killed the atmosphere in World Iceborne. It was especially baffling back then as well, because the cutscenes that came after the quest actually included my friends in them, which was really, really cool. I'm hoping desperately that these cutscenes can include your whole party in them, even if one person is obviously the main character. The main concern I have with the story, though, is, let's be honest, it's probably gonna suck. I mean, just look at the stories Monster Hunter has given us so far. Monster Hunter 4 is the only one that could really be called good. That said, I'm pretty much content with the crappy, simplistic stories we've had so far, where it's just some investigation of a monster that ends up being irrelevant in light of some elder dragon showing up. And the reason for that is that these stories largely don't try to be any more than what they are, which is just an excuse to hunt monsters. All I foresee in this attempt to make a bigger story is the bad parts of World and Rise becoming far more obvious and annoying, especially those unearned sentimental moments that you see a lot of in Japanese storytelling. The final point, though, isn't actually about the games, it's about the trailers. Capcom has a horrendous habit of giving away every damn detail of their games in the trailers, so that playing the game contains effectively zero discovery or novelty. This happened with World, although I was luckily not around to see that. It happened with Rise and Sunbreak, which is part of why those games felt so disappointing for me, and it happened with Dragon's Dogma 2. Luckily though, I can solve this problem myself. I'm not going to be watching any more trailers for this game, except perhaps the one coming at Gamescom in August. And thus, sadly, that means no more Monster Hunter Wilds content from me until the game comes out. That'll be it for this video. See ya.